What sets AIR2 and AIR3 apart in UPSC CSE 2024? They didn't wait to feel ready. They started smart with the GS Foundation course at Vision IS Delhi. Structured learning, focused current affairs, real mentorship, test feedback that actually helps you grow. This course isn't just about study hours, it's about direction, clarity and the strategy toppers trust. Start strong. Start where toppers started.
UPSC preparation is not just about reading books or watching online lectures. It requires personal guidance, real discussions, and structured practice. This is where offline mentoring makes all the difference. Unlike online learning, where doubts often remain unresolved, offline mentoring offers direct interaction, real-time feedback, and an environment of discipline and competition. One-to-one sessions help students get tailored advice, strategy corrections, and focused improvement. Every aspirant has different strengths and weaknesses. Personal mentoring helps address them effectively. Ground discussions sharpen analytical thinking and help students develop a multi-dimensional perspective on issues crucial for prelims, mains, and interview. Elocution sessions help in personality development, clarity of thought, and confidence, essential for UPSC interviews. Test writing is the most crucial part of UPSC preparation. It helps in time management, structuring answers, and improving content quality. Offline mentoring is not just about teaching. It's about grooming future officers with the right guidance, discipline, and confidence. So if you are preparing for UPSC, make sure you have the right mentor by your side.
Are you still juggling newspapers, random notes, and endless PDFs trying to make sense of current affairs? Let's make your UPSC prep smarter. Introducing Digital Current Affairs Premium by Vision IAS, your all-in-one platform to read, revise, and write better every single day. Have a doubt from today's news or something in your syllabus? Just ask and get instant AI-powered answers that are concise, relevant, and completely aligned with the UPSC exam pattern. No more guesswork, no more confusion. Want to boost your mains writing skills? Practice daily with structured questions and get expert feedback to sharpen your content, clarity, and analysis, because writing well is winning half the battle. Need better revision? Use quick notes and highlights to save key points, mark important lines, and organize your current affairs in a way that actually works for you. And here's the best part, some of the most powerful tools are absolutely free. Daily news summaries from The Hindu, Indian Express, and more, curated, filtered, and exam ready. Downloadable PDFs so your notes stay organized and accessible. Daily quizzes and MCQs to reinforce what you've learned and track your progress. A smart student dashboard to monitor your performance and stay on top of your goals. Whether you're just starting or deep into your prep, Digital Current Affairs Premium adapts to your strategy and makes every minute count. So why prepare the hard way when you can prepare the smart way? Visit www.visionis.in/current-affairs and start transforming your current affairs prep today. Because with Vision IAS, you don't just stay updated, you stay ahead. UPSC CSE 2024 results are out and dreams have turned into ranks. Now you are asking, how do I get there? You've got the drive. What you need is the right guidance. Lakshya Integrated Mentoring Program 2026 by Vision IAS is your one-stop guidance program for prelims, mains, and interview. Smart, strategic revision for prelims and mains. Consistent mentorship with personalized feedback. Daily weekly schedule and practice targets. Custom test practice via Sandhan test series. Interview and personality test training. All of it structured to guide you, strategic to keep you focused, and designed to meet your evolving needs. New batch starts from 19th May. It's your turn now. Start strong with Lakshya Mentoring Program 2026.
What sets AIR2 and AIR3 apart in UPSC CSE 2024? They didn't wait to feel ready. They started smart with the GS Foundation course at Vision IAS Delhi. Structured learning, focused current affairs, real mentorship, test feedback that actually helps you grow. This course isn't just about study hours, it's about direction, clarity, and the strategy toppers trust. Start strong. Start where toppers started.
UPSC preparation is not just about reading books or watching online lectures. It requires personal guidance, real discussions, and structured practice. This is where offline mentoring makes all the difference. Unlike online learning, where doubts often remain unresolved, offline mentoring offers direct interaction, real-time feedback, and an environment of discipline and competition. One-to-one sessions help students get tailored advice, strategy corrections, and focused improvement. Every aspirant has different strengths and weaknesses. Personal mentoring helps address them effectively. Ground discussions sharpen analytical thinking and help students develop a multi-dimensional perspective on issues crucial for prelims, mains, and interview. Elocution sessions help in personality development, clarity of thought, and confidence, essential for UPSC interviews. Test writing is the most crucial part of UPSC preparation. It helps in time management, structuring answers, and improving content quality. Offline mentoring is not just about teaching, it's about grooming future officers with the right guidance, discipline, and confidence. So if you are preparing for UPSC, make sure you have the right mentor by your side.
Are you still juggling newspapers, random notes, and endless PDFs trying to make sense of current affairs? Let's make your UPSC prep smarter. Introducing Digital Current Affairs Premium by Vision IAS, your all-in-one platform to read, revise, and write better every single day. Have a doubt from today's news or something in your syllabus? Just ask and get instant AI-powered answers that are concise, relevant, and completely aligned with the UPSC exam pattern. No more guesswork, no more confusion. Want to boost your mains writing skills? Practice daily with structured questions and get expert feedback to sharpen your content, clarity, and analysis, because writing well is winning half the battle. Need better revision? Use quick notes and highlights to save key points, mark important lines, and organize your current affairs in a way that actually works for you. And here's the best part, some of the most powerful tools are absolutely free. Daily news summaries from The Hindu, Indian Express, and more, curated, filtered, and exam ready. Downloadable PDFs so your notes stay organized and accessible. Daily quizzes and MCQs to reinforce what you've learned and track your progress. A smart student dashboard to monitor your performance and stay on top of your goals. Whether you're just starting or deep into your prep, Digital Current Affairs Premium adapts to your strategy and makes every minute count. So why prepare the hard way when you can prepare the smart way? Visit www.visionis.in/current-affairs and start transforming your current affairs prep today. Because with Vision IAS, you don't just stay updated, you stay ahead. UPSC CSE 2024 results are out and dreams have turned into ranks. Now you are asking, how do I get there? You've got the drive. What you need is the right guidance. Lakshya Integrated Mentoring Program 2026 by Vision IAS is your one-stop guidance program for prelims, mains, and interview. Smart, strategic revision for prelims and mains. Consistent mentorship with personalized feedback. Daily weekly schedule and practice targets. Custom test practice via Sandhan test series. interview and personality test training. All of it structured to guide you, strategic to keep you focused, and designed to meet your evolving needs. New batch starts from 19th May. It's your turn now. Start strong with Lakshya Mentoring Program 2026.
What sets AIR2 and AIR3 apart in UPSC CSE 2024? They didn't wait to feel ready. They started smart with the GS Foundation course at Vision IS Delhi. Structured learning, focused current affairs, real mentorship, test feedback that actually helps you grow. This course isn't just about study hours, it's about direction, clarity, and the strategy toppers trust. Start strong. Start where toppers started.
UPSC preparation is not just about reading books or watching online lectures. It requires personal guidance, real discussions, and structured practice. This is where offline mentoring makes all the difference. Unlike online learning, where doubts often remain unresolved, offline mentoring offers direct interaction, real-time feedback, and an environment of discipline and competition. One-to-one sessions help students get tailored advice, strategy corrections, and focused improvement. Every aspirant has different strengths and weaknesses. Personal mentoring helps address them effectively. Ground discussions sharpen analytical thinking and help students develop a multi-dimensional perspective on issues crucial for prelims, mains, and interview. Elocution sessions help in personality development, clarity of thought, and confidence, essential for UPSC interviews. Test writing is the most crucial part of UPSC preparation. It helps in time management, structuring answers, and improving content quality. Offline mentoring is not just about teaching, it's about grooming future officers with the right guidance, discipline, and confidence. So if you are preparing for UPSC, make sure you have the right mentor by your side.
Are you still juggling newspapers, random notes, and endless PDFs trying to make sense of current affairs? Let's make your UPSC prep smarter. Introducing Digital Current Affairs Premium by Vision IAS, your all-in-one platform to read, revise, and write better every single day. Have a doubt from today's news or something in your syllabus? Just ask and get instant AI-powered answers that are concise, relevant, and completely aligned with the UPSC exam pattern. No more guesswork, no more confusion. Want to boost your mains writing skills? Practice daily with structured questions and get expert feedback to sharpen your content, clarity, and analysis, because writing well is winning half the battle. Need better revision? Use quick notes and highlights to save key points, mark important lines, and organize your current affairs in a way that actually works for you. And here's the best part, some of the most powerful tools are absolutely free. Daily news summaries from The Hindu, Indian Express and more, curated, filtered, and exam ready. Downloadable PDFs so your notes stay organized and accessible. Daily quizzes and MCQs to reinforce what you've learned and track your progress. A smart student dashboard to monitor your performance and stay on top of your goals. Whether you're just starting or deep into your prep, Digital Current Affairs Premium adapts to your strategy and makes every minute count. So why prepare the hard way when you can prepare the smart way? Visit www.visionis.in/current-affairs and start transforming your current affairs prep today. Because with Vision IAS, you don't just stay updated, you stay ahead. UPSC CSE 2024 results are out and dreams have turned into ranks. Now you are asking, how do I get there? You've got the drive. What you need is the right guidance. Lakshya Integrated Mentoring Program 2026 by Vision IAS is your one-stop guidance program for prelims, mains, and interview. Smart, strategic revision for prelims and mains. Consistent mentorship with personalized feedback. Daily weekly schedule and practice targets. Custom test practice via Sandhan test series. Interview and personality test training. All of it structured to guide you, strategic to keep you focused, and designed to meet your evolving needs. New batch starts from 19th May. It's your turn now. Start strong with Lakshya Mentoring Program 2026.
What sets AIR2 and AIR3 apart in UPSC CSE 2024? They didn't wait to feel ready. They started smart with the GS Foundation course at Vision IAS Delhi. Structured learning, focused current affairs, real mentorship, test feedback that actually helps you grow. This course isn't just about study hours, it's about direction, clarity, and the strategy toppers trust. Start strong. Start where toppers started.
UPSC preparation is not just about reading books or watching
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, we are going to be talking about how do we increase our score in ethics, and especially for those who have been writing mains earlier, and how do you go on to punch above your weight in terms of the ethics paper. Usually we have seen that many candidates, they end up messing up their ethic papers, and we'll be talking about how we ensure we can get the maximum return on investment in terms of the time that we invest as far as the ethics paper is concerned. Before I proceed, how many of you are writing the mains exam this year? Right. Okay. So without much ado, let's start with our conversation on the maximizing scores in ethics. And I have actually titled this particular session as how do you score 130 plus marks in ethics? Now, before I begin, let me talk about what is the importance of ethics, and especially ethics in administration that we are going to be discussing about today. Some of the other aspects of ethics, that is case studies or some aspects related to emotional intelligence or topics such as attitude, etc., would be taken by the other faculty, but I am here to specifically talk about ethics in administration as a topic. Now, if you see this particular picture, right? This is the image from 1947, right after independence, when a speech was given by the then Home Minister of the country to the bureaucrats, to the members of the Indian Administrative Services at the Metcalfe House in Delhi. And you have to understand the importance of this particular speech because the country had just come out of partition. There was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of uncertainty. We had seen massive loss of lives during the partition. And there was a lot of confusion and doubt as well with respect to where we are going to be as a nation in a few years. And at that point of time, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel in his speech had mentioned the following: that you will not be content merely with what you are doing. You must keep your gaze fixed on the ideal before you and strive to raise the standard of your performance. He's talking to the members of the Indian Civil Services. You are the steel frame of this country. We are talking about the steel frame of India. The steel frame which has held this country together. The steel frame which has been responsible for providing advice to the political executive in the country. The steel frame which has been responsible for ensuring the free and fair implementation of schemes and programs of the government in the country. The steel frame which has been responsible for ensuring a connect between the center and the states and ensuring uniform policy making in the country. Today, from cradle to grave, आपके पैदा होने से मरने तक, the civil services in India play a seminal role in each of our lives. So ethics in administration is not just about knowing certain topics of the syllabus and doing well in the examination. Ethics in administration is also preparing you for a life in civil services. So the importance of ethics in administration, therefore, does not lie only from the examination perspective. The values that we will be discussing, the principles that you will be learning would come in handy when you would be a part of the civil services, when you would face several ethical dilemmas as a part of your job on a day-to-day basis. There would be numerous challenges which you would face, and that is when an ethical approach would help you in ensuring that you stay true to the purpose with which it was called the steel frame of India. Right? I hope you understand the significance of the term steel frame of India, steel frame of a nation. It is the structure on which the entire nation rests today. If the steel frame would collapse, the rest of the country would also collapse. So when you people would become civil servants, there would be a significant amount of responsibility on your shoulders to ensure that you are ethical in your conduct. Not only are you concerned about the efficiency and effectiveness of the policies and the implementation of the same, but also concerned about compassion towards weaker sections of the society. You're dedicated to the cause of public service. You showcase higher standards of integrity in your behavior. So therefore, please treat the topic of ethics in administration not only from the lens of the examination, but as a topic that will prepare you for a career in civil services in future. Now, let's proceed further. If I have told you what is the importance of ethics in administration as far as examination, and more importantly from the perspective of service is concerned, let's talk about what the syllabus of ethics in administration is that has been provided to us by Union Public Service Commission. What we'll do in this particular session is that we will try to break down each and every topic of the syllabus into subtopics and see what are the various dimensions that we need to prepare for the mains examination. Secondly, I will tell you approach to a few topics, not all the topics because that's not possible, but I'll pick up a few topics and we will try to discuss how do we approach preparing those particular topics specifically, keeping what we are going to be discussing in the earlier part of our session. After that, I will discuss with you what are some of the ways in which you can effectively improve your answers as far as ethics is concerned. And to aid us in that, we will also look at some of the topper copies of the previous years to unlock, to understand how they were able to secure more than 130 marks in ethics. Now, let's start with talking about the syllabus of ethics in administration as a topic. And the syllabus which has been provided to us by UPSC consists of the topic of public service values and ethics in public administration, status, problems, ethical dilemmas, laws, rules, regulations and conscience as ethical sources. How do we strengthen the ethical values in administration? Certain ethical issues in international relations and corporate governance, foundational values of civil services, probity in governance, which consists of the idea of public service, philosophy behind the idea of public service, transparency, accountability, right to information, citizen charter, code of ethics, code of conduct, some of the tools in order to ensure probity in governance. But let us try to break down each of these particular topics and understand what UPSC expects us to prepare as a part of our GS paper 4 for ethics in administration. The first topic that we usually take up in our classes here at Vision when we cover the topic of ethics in administration is foundational values of civil services. Foundational values of civil services. Now, in this topic, most importantly, you need to understand the definition of the term foundational values of civil services. So we need to know what is the meaning of the term foundational values of civil services. We need to know what is the significance of foundational values of civil services. Why has this even been made a part of our syllabus? So what is the importance of defining foundational values of civil services, listing down certain foundational values of civil services, and what are foundational values of civil services? Then we need to prepare a list of important foundational values of civil services. Some of them have already been provided in your syllabus. To begin with, your syllabus talks about sympathy, empathy, compassion, dedication to public service, objectivity, impartiality, and non-partisanship. Integrity, honesty. These are some of the values which our syllabus tells us to prepare. But apart from this as well, it is important for you to look into some of the important service values or foundational values of the civil services. For example, you should look at the Nolan Committee report or the Nolan Committee values that were laid down for improving the standards of public services in United Kingdom. That could include certain values such as selflessness, integrity, transparency, accountability, etc. Another source that you can refer in order to understand certain values which you need to prepare, and I'll tell you what are the things that you need to prepare for each of these values. You can also refer the Public Service Code that was proposed by the second ARC. Second Administrative Reforms Commission has suggested a public service code in which they have mentioned a few values: patriotism, integrity, transparency, compassion, objectivity. So you need to prepare those particular values as well. This is the entire universe of values that you need to prepare. The ones that have been provided to us explicitly in the syllabus provided by Union Public Service Commission, the Nolan Committee values, and the Public Service Code values. Now, what all do we need to prepare in each of these particular values? For each of these values, we need to have the following dimensions covered. Each of these values, which is first, the definition of the value. How do you define that particular value? You need to know the difference between various values as well. I will give you examples of how you prepare this, but first I'm telling you what is the broad approach that we need to have in terms of what all we need to cover. Secondly, we need to have the significance of this, whatever that value is, in public life. Why is it important for a civil servant to showcase compassion in their behavior? Why is it important for a civil servant to be objective in their outlook and actions? Why is it important for a civil servant to be impartial and non-partisan in their actions and behavior? So we need to prepare a few aspects of significance of each of these particular values in public life. Once we have done that, we also need to know some examples. of these particular values. Now these examples, one, you need to prepare a list of real life examples. 3-4 examples for each of the values should be more than sufficient. You don't need to do a PhD. You don't need to have 10 examples of each value. It's not of any use. 3 to 4 good examples, unique examples if possible, and I'll tell you how you find those examples. That should be sufficient. And secondly, you should also have some illustrations. Illustrations would essentially be some fictitious examples that you will give. That a public servant who has been approached by an old lady without any documents, seeking supply of ration after the floods, decides to provide ration to the lady despite not having the documents in place on grounds of compassion. Now there is no name that you have taken in this, but you need to know how in public life those particular values come into action. It could be integrity. A public servant who is having financial issues at home declines to take bribe for approving a particular project by a contractor. An example of integrity. Illustration of integrity. An example of integrity would be a real life example. Mahatma Gandhi was unwilling to compromise on the value of non-violence, irrespective of whether it appealed to the people or public or not. After the Chauri Chaura incident, he decided to call off the non-cooperation movement, even though the movement was at its peak, because he did not want to compromise with the value of non-violence. He believed in his principles, he believed in his values, and showed steadfast adherence to the same. An example of integrity. Integrity is when you are true to your principles, your morals, your values, even when no external force is watching you. No one necessarily imposes you, or no one necessarily asks you to follow that. You don't cheat in an examination not just because the invigilator is there. You don't cheat in the examination even when the invigilator is not there in the examination hall, because you believe that everyone should be performing in the examination as per their preparation and capability. It is a true test of merit. You believe in the idea of fairness and justice. You believe that it is wrong to cheat in the examination because it would be unfair to those who have worked hard to do well in the examination. An example of integrity. You decide not to jump the traffic light at late night despite there being no cameras, despite there being no cops or policemen around, because you've been told that to follow the rules is your first duty as a citizen. You are a law-abiding citizen, and therefore you don't break any rules irrespective of whether someone is watching you or not. An example of integrity. So you need to prepare a list of illustrations and certain real-life examples. How we will do that? We will discuss about that with the help of one of the values. So that is one thing that we need to do. Then, apart from that, we also need to prepare what are some of the challenges that civil servants or public servants face in adhering to that value. For example, the value of objectivity means that every civil servant should take decisions on the basis of careful analysis of facts, data, considerations. They should not take decisions in an impulsive manner. They should not take decisions on the basis of guesswork. They should not take decisions on the basis of their biases, preconceived notions. You need to be fair. You need to be objective. You need to be seen as an individual who is intelligent and who takes decisions after carefully considering the merits and the demerits of each of the alternatives. That is what objectivity is. But it is very difficult for a civil servant to maintain objectivity in civil services because of certain obstacles that they face. For example, availability of data within the government can be a difficult task at times. We know that a census has not been done in this country for 15 years now. The government agencies don't have accurate data on health indicators, on demographic indicators of people living in their district. So if I have to introduce some kind of intervention for improvement of nutritional status or to improve the health status of pregnant women, if I have to improve the health status of elderly people, I don't really have information. I don't have data. So I may not necessarily be completely objective in my approach to solving that particular problem. This is a challenge that a civil servant faces in being objective in the civil services. So similarly, for each of these values, you also need to prepare what are the challenges that a civil servant faces with respect to each of those values. Another important aspect to keep in mind is what are the measures to inculcate these particular values in civil services. If you were to propose, how can we make civil servants individuals of impeccable integrity? Or how can we ensure greater sensitivity and compassion among the Indian civil servants? What are the steps that can be taken in order to ensure that? So, what are the measures to be taken to impart or inculcate the values in public service? Apart from this, I would also suggest that if possible, for each of the values, you have at least one quote from a moral thinker or a philosopher. Maybe from Gandhi, maybe from Noam Chomsky or an Abraham Lincoln or a Jawaharlal Nehru or a Sardar Patel or Aristotle or Plato or Immanuel Kant or Jeremy Bentham or John Rawls. Or it could be any quote from any famous individual that relates to that particular value. If you can do that, it'll be great. It's not necessary that you have that, but an added advantage would be to have a quote from a philosopher or a moral thinker or a public servant, leader from the past. I've put it in yellow because it's not something which is always possible, but at least a few quotes, maybe not one for each of the values, at least 5 quotes in total, 10 quotes in total if we can remember, we can always use them in our answers. We will see that how the toppers of previous years have used these quotes effectively in their introductions or in their conclusions and have been successful in securing marks out of Union Public Service Commission. So, this is how we need to prepare this topic of foundational values of civil services. I hope that this is understood to all of you. Now, let's try to dive deeper into this. I'll do similar kind of breakdown for each of the topics of the syllabus. I will not be doing a detailed analysis of each of the topics, but I'll provide you this structure so that you know हमें prepare क्या करना है कम से कम, so that we are 100% prepared for ethics in the administration portion. Now, let's have a look at how we prepare this topic, let's say, of foundational values of civil services. So, each topic has to be analyzed with respect to following aspects. Each topic of syllabus. What are the key concepts in that particular topic and subtopic? What are the possible subtopics? what are the relevant sources that I need to refer for each of those topics, and what are some of the past questions that have been asked by UPSC related to those particular topics, so that I understand what kind of questions UPSC asks. How do I need to prepare that particular topic? So, firstly, as I said, you need to understand what foundational values are. So, foundational values are nothing but these are those basic values that are considered dear for the civil services, that are considered as the basis or the edifice of the civil services. The civil servants are supposed to follow them in those situations where they are stuck in a dilemma, in ethical dilemmas. When they are stuck in a situation when they don't know what action to take, these foundational values will come to their rescue. Foundational values, therefore, are the basic values that guide the conduct, the behavior, the attitudes of the civil servants. I put the image here of the North Star or the Pole Star. You can draw that comparison, that foundational values are like the pole star in the universe of public life. Whenever a civil servant is lost in various situations, in various dilemmas, the foundational values of civil services can come to that person's rescue. So you need to prepare the definition of foundational values. You need to be able to explain it in as many words to the examiner, in simplest of the words. For each of the topics, first question that you should ask yourself is, can I define this topic in my own words? Can I define what are foundational values, for example? So that's the first thing that we need to do. Second, what do we need to do? Significance of foundational values that I told you. So you have to think now, why are foundational values important? Civil servants enjoy wide discretionary powers. When you will be civil servants, you will be given a number of powers for which no one will necessarily guide you how to exercise those. You would have the power to sign on certain documents and provide services to the citizens out of your discretion. But you should not exercise those discretionary powers for selfish purposes, for your relatives, for your loved ones, for your friends, for your own benefit, but for the benefit of the larger community. You should do it in consonance with the foundational values of civil services. So, foundational values can help you in exercising those discretionary powers in an ethical manner. That's what you have to write. Secondly, when you will be a part of civil services, you will face a number of ethical dilemmas, whether to do this or that, whether to listen to my superior or whether to listen to my own conscience. In those particular situations, foundational values of civil services will come to your rescue. They will help you in taking difficult decisions. If civil servants follow foundational values of civil services in their behavior and conduct, it would mean that the civil servants would be able to win over the trust of the citizens. Citizens would have greater trust in the functioning of the civil services. So these are some examples of how you need to prepare. What is the significance of foundational values of civil services? Now, jumping into each of the values then, dimensions that we need to prepare is definition of each of the values, significance of value, the example of various values, what are the challenges that are faced in adhering to those values in public life, how do we inculcate those values in public life. So let's try to understand how do we prepare that. I'm not going to be doing this analysis for each and every topic, as I said. I will do it for some topics so that you get an idea of how to prepare. And then rest you people are intelligent enough to use that to your advantage. So now let's move further. look at the kind of questions that UPSC is asking related to foundational values of civil services. State 3 basic values universal in nature in context of civil services and bring out their importance. If you were to prepare all those values and their significance, would you not be able to write the answer to this question? You can write about impartiality, you can write about non-partisanship. It is important for the civil servants not to discriminate between people on the basis of religion, race, caste, gender, language, region. How else will you win over the trust of the citizens? You need to draw constitutional articles as well to justify your answer. The Constitution, the preamble itself talks about equality of status and opportunity, justice, social, economic and political. How would you be able to uphold the idea of justice and equality if you yourself are partial in your behavior? If you provide preference to people of a certain caste or religion over people of some other community? The point that I'm trying to make is that think and relate to whatever you know from different subjects when it comes to ethics. You can use examples from history in ethics. You can quote the relevant provisions of the Constitution in order to justify your actions from an ethical perspective. You can use your knowledge of society in order to highlight the challenges that people face in the society to justify an ethical approach. You can use your knowledge of geography and environment in order to showcase to the examiner that I know about environmental issues and environmental ethics as well. Use your knowledge of international relations in order to showcase how nations in their conduct globally need to be ethical. The point is that ethics is a subject that requires multi-dimensional knowledge of international relations, of society, of environment and geography, of Indian constitution and governance issues, of internal security issues. And if you know all of those things thoroughly, you can use them in your answers in ethics. That is the beauty of ethics paper. And I will show that to you how the students in the past have done that and have secured high marks in this particular paper. Now, look at another question. Identify 5 ethical traits on which one can plot the performance of a civil servant, justify their inclusion in the matrix. Let's say if you were the Prime Minister of the country and were given the responsibility in order to decide what are the most important values that every civil servant should showcase in their behavior, in their actions. And we will judge the performance of a civil servant only on the basis of those particular 5 values. What would those 5 values be? Why would you include them only in the matrix? For example, why would you want civil servants to showcase integrity, but compassion may not be so important for you? Why? So you need to provide reasons for that as well. Here UPSC is not just interested in knowing the plain definition of a particular value from you, but they want you to think deeply and talk about what is the importance of certain values in the civil services and public life. And why are they important over other values as well? Then, another question. Impartiality and non-partisanship are indispensable qualities for a civil servant. Discuss with illustrations. So you have to define the values of impartiality and non-partisanship in this particular question. You have to talk about the significance of impartiality and non-partisanship. If a civil servant is not non-partisan, being non-partisan means you are politically neutral. If a civil servant is not non-partisan, would he or she be able to provide fair advice to the political executive? No. Would there be a trustworthy relationship between the minister and the civil servant if they are not non-partisan in nature? No. There will be breakdown of trust. The minister may not often want to give you work because they are not sure whether you are non-partisan in nature or not. If a civil servant is partisan in nature, has inclination towards a particular political ideology or a particular political party and dislikes the other political spectrum, then if the government from the opposite spectrum would come into power, he would find it very difficult to work with them. Civil servants, as per the constitution, are supposed to be the implementation partners or the implementation tools for the policy of the government. If they are not non-partisan in nature, then they will be violating their constitutional oath as well, that they have taken for showing faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India. So, the point being, for each of the values, we need to prepare the dimensions that we just discussed. Now, how do we need to prepare these particular values and their definition? In very simple, lucid term, in very simple and lucid language. For example, sympathy is the ability to be able to recognize the pain of other individuals, the suffering or the situation of other individuals. But empathy is being able to relate to the pain and the suffering of the other individual and to be able to put yourself in the shoes of that individual yourself. Empathy. You look at a beggar on the street and you feel pity on that particular beggar because of the position in which he or she is. That's sympathy. But when you actually think cognitively, you apply your mind and imagine what would it be if you were in position of that particular person. What kind of support would you expect from others? That is what is called as empathy. But compassion is the ability to be able to not only feel the pain of the others, but it is also the ability of an individual to take an action to relieve the pain and the suffering of the other individual. That is what is compassion. What civil servants require is compassion and not just sympathy or empathy. Many other individuals in the society can be sympathetic and empathetic, but you as civil servants need to showcase compassion in your behavior. You need to be action oriented as well. Simply feeling bad for someone is not going to do the job. You need to do something to uplift the status of those particular people. That is what is called as compassion. So, you need to prepare simple worded definitions of each of the values like this. Being compassionate means taking action to relieve the pain and the suffering that an individual is experiencing. Very simple terms, simple definition in your own words. Now, once we have done that, the second aspect is you need to prepare the significance of sympathy, empathy, compassion, but also need to prepare real life examples. Where will you find real life examples? That's the question. The best source is newspapers. Every day in the newspapers, some or the other article comes related to the action taken by a particular district magistrate or an officer. Some showcasing compassion, some lacking compassion, some showcasing integrity, some lacking integrity. You prepare your own list. For each of the values, it's best that you have your own list that you have prepared while reading newspapers. It will not happen in a day. But if you've been reading newspapers regularly, you will find examples every now and then, and you can use them in your ethics paper. One such prominent example that I always give in our classes is that of the DM of Gopalganj district in Bihar. A particular woman who was involved in cooking the midday meal in a government school was removed from her position by the principal of the school after her husband died. Once she became a widow, the societal rules said that this woman is unlucky. Because of her, the husband is dead, and therefore she should not be allowed to be around children, be cooking food for them. It would prove unlucky for the children as well. So the principal immediately issues the order showcasing lack of compassion, lack of objectivity, lack of scientific temper, and removes her from that particular position. Imagine what would she do now? When the district magistrate came to know of this particular situation, he went to that particular school, he called that woman, the cook, and asked her to cook the food, reinstated her, and sat there in the school compound and ate the food in front of the rest of the village to set an example for the others. This is not only an example of compassion. You have related to the pain and the suffering that that woman is facing, but you also wanted to resolve the situation. You wanted to showcase to the rest of the villagers that if I, as the district magistrate, as an IAS officer, can be sitting here and can be consuming this meal which has been cooked by this lady, what is the problem that you others cannot do the same? An example of compassion, but it is also an example of leadership as well, shown by a public servant. So you can use this in leadership also. There are numerous examples that keep coming up in newspapers every now and then. Recently, 2 days back, I was reading about this particular story of an IAS officer who went for a surgery in a government hospital in her district. She ditched the private hospital and went to the government hospital. Again, an example of compassion, an example of leadership, an example of dedication to public service as well. She understands that my whole being has to be given to the cause of public service. Not just my professional life, but even in my personal life, I need to showcase such behavior that I am truly dedicated to the cause of improving the status of people in the society. So look for examples in newspapers. Other than that, when I talk about the examples, let me quickly come back to that. Let me quickly talk about that. These real life examples can also be prepared from certain other sources as well, apart from newspapers. So one, of course, is newspapers that you read on a daily basis. Secondly, you can find examples from history. All of you have covered modern Indian history. All of you have covered the Indian freedom struggle. You can find numerous examples of sympathy and empathy and compassion and integrity, sensitivity, selflessness, dedication to public service, impartiality, etc. All of you must have read about Nelson Mandela. He spent a long time in jail in South Africa. Such atrocities were committed against the colored people in South Africa. But despite that, when he came out, he did not talk about revenge. He talked about compassion. He talked about forgiveness. He said that if we have to move towards unity as a nation, if we have to look towards the future, then as a nation, we need to forget what has happened in the past. That doesn't mean that we forget whatever has happened, but that means we need to draw lessons from the past, which is that hatred will not get us anywhere, which is that revenge will not get us anywhere. Let us try to look at things positively in future. Let us try to build a stronger society. Let us try to build a society where people trust each other, irrespective of whatever race they belong to. An example of compassion, an example of sensitivity shown by a public servant, a public leader. So you can find examples from history, you can find examples from newspapers. One very important source from where you can find example is the Padma awardees every year. If you read the list of the Padma awardees every year, and if you read the citations associated with those Padma awards, you will find some brief explanation of why they were given that particular award. That can also be a source for preparation of examples. You can also prepare examples from the list of awardees every year under Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration. So there is a Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration that is awarded every year on the occasion of Civil Services Day, and you can look at the list of the awardees and the kind of work that they have done, and from there also you can find numerous examples of the civil servants showcasing certain values in their behavior. There are numerous websites as well where you can find such examples. One such website where you can find such examples is Better India. You can find examples on the website of Nexus of Good. Numerous other sources you will be able to find if you look up the internet. Again, you don't need to do a PhD and to prepare a list which is running into hundreds of pages of each of the values or all the values also put together. Just 3-4 examples for each of the values should be more than sufficient, and you will notice that often some of the examples can be repeated in other values as well. So even DM Gopalganj is not only showcasing compassion and leadership, but is also showcasing dedication to public service. He's also showcasing objectivity as well, because he is not taking decision on the basis of his biases. He's taking decisions on the basis of scientific temper. He is not superstitious. He's showcasing scientific temper as well as an individual. Do you understand that? So we have to prepare the list of examples like this. This is what is truly going to enrich your answers in ethics. Now, other than that, as I said, you also need to prepare some of the points related to significance of values, which also means if those values are absent, what will happen? We can look at it that way as well. So if those values are absent, this is what can happen. If compassion is missing from the civil services, this is what can happen. That people, those who are disabled, people, those who are on wheelchair, cannot step into the trains, cannot use the public transport, cannot be moving around on the roads, because it is the design of the public transport, the design of the roads has not been done in a compassionate manner. This is what will happen when individuals would start behaving like robots in civil services, and they would not see the person in front of them, rather they would only see facts, rather they would only see documents and rules and nothing else. So significance of compassion has to be also again interlinked with the help of whatever you read in the newspapers and current affairs. How do we inculcate empathy, compassion, etc.? Again, you need to prepare a list of real practical points. Things that you will again be drawing from your governance classes, concepts that you will draw from newspapers. This, for example, is a Janta Darbar, which is a way of inculcating compassion among civil servants. In different states, it is called by different names, but the purpose is the same. There is regular interaction that is organized between the civil servants and the public, where people come up with their grievances directly to the public servants. Once a week, or once a month, or once in a fortnight. Even the political leaders are involved in such activities themselves. This is a great way to understand the problems of the people firsthand, and also to develop compassion towards their issues. How we inculcate compassion in public services. So we need to find examples from newspapers, we need to find examples from our governance lessons as far as ethics in administration is concerned. I hope this is understood to all of you. So this is how we need to prepare this entire topic of foundational values of civil services, brick by brick, for each of the values. Is this clear to everyone? Now, let's move on. So, as I promised that we will be breaking down each of the topics of the syllabus, and for few of the topics we'll do this kind of a analysis as well as to how we prepare those particular topics. The second topic that we have to prepare is ethical dilemmas in governance. Ethical concerns and dilemmas in governance. Now, here you need to prepare firstly definition of ethical dilemmas and concerns, types of ethical dilemmas and concerns which are faced by the civil servants. For example, there is always a dilemma between environment versus development. There is always a dilemma between self-interest versus public interest. So you need to prepare a list of the kind of dilemmas that civil servants face in public service and their definition as well, definition of of the dilemmas. Thirdly, you need to prepare the framework to resolve such ethical dilemmas that civil servants face in as a part of their job. For each of these types of ethical dilemmas, you also need to prepare examples. So, ethical dilemma between development and environment would be where you are supposed to be leading a project for setting up a hydro power plant in a forested area, because of which several tribal communities and the wildlife would be affected. What would you do in this situation? Just prepare this much. It's an example of an ethical dilemma between environment and development, nothing else. So prepare certain examples as well. If possible, try to look for not just examples or illustrations, but also some real life case studies as well. Real life case studies as well. I'll give you examples of how you prepare this particular point as well. So, इसमें definition, types, framework to resolve such dilemmas has to be prepared. Examples of such dilemmas have to be prepared, and real life case studies of such dilemmas have to be prepared. Now, let's try to look at the kind of questions that UPSC asks from this particular topic of ethical dilemmas in governance. Now see, again, dedication to public service. I found this an example from the newspapers, a very interesting example. Dedication to public service is when you are dedicated to the cause of public service 24/7. You go beyond your duty and your job. You are your soul, your mind, your body is completely concerned about improving the public status. In this particular real life case study, a local politician in Andhra Pradesh came to know that the developmental work at a particular site was stalled because the labor and the contractor would run away every now and then, because the development was taking place at a crematorium. एक शमशान घाट में कुछ डेवलपमेंट का काम हो रहा था और वहां से लेबर जो है हर बार भाग जाती थी. Why? Because there was a superstition that was prevalent among the labor and the contractor that there are some spirits, there are some ghosts that come there at night at the crematorium. So no one wanted to stay there or to be at work. So what did he do? He took his own bedding, he took his own charpai, he put it there and he said that I am going to be sleeping there for a few nights. This is to show to the people that if nothing is happening to me, nothing is going to happen to the other people as well. They should come here, stay here, do the work, and so that we can provide some better services to the public. An example of dedication to public service, where he's saying that I'm going to sleep in the same place for another 2 to 3 days. This is to instill confidence among the workers who were otherwise scared of entering the premises to take up construction because of the prevalent superstition. Anyway, now, ethical dilemmas in public service. Let's look at this particular question and let's try to think what could be our response to such a question. Suppose the government is considering a dam in a forested mountain valley inhabited by ethnic communities. What rational policy should it resort to in dealing with unforeseen contingencies? I give you 2 minutes. Think about what are the important points that you will be writing in your response to this particular question. If you were a civil servant, what kind of strategy would you devise in such a situation to deal with the unforeseen contingencies? Think about it. Take 2 minutes, write down what you think could be relevant to write here. Your answer should not only list the strategy or the steps that you will take, but also provide ethical justification for why you are taking those particular actions. Both the things are important. This is a classical dilemma of development versus environment. This is a classical dilemma of development versus indigenous rights. This is the important aspect that you need to mention in your answer. ये एक चीज आपके आंसर में मेंशन होनी चाहिए. That in this particular case study or in this particular situation, there is an ethical dilemma that is involved. So, सबसे पहले क्या important चीज है? Recognition of the ethical dilemma. One of the ethical dilemmas, for example, is development versus indigenous rights, or development versus environment, or development versus sustainability, or we can also say environmental justice. कैसे भी आप इसको लिख सकते हैं. Then, what should be our situation? What should be our strategy in such a specific situation? So, the strategy that we will be following would be as follows. Now, this is what I think should be the strategy. You may differ on it, but again, most important is not just what you are proposing, but why are you proposing that? My strategy would be that in such a situation, firstly, I would conduct an environmental impact assessment of that particular project to assess the damage that can be caused by that particular project, so that I can take the decision in an So what does it show on my part? That I am an officer who believes in the value of objectivity. समझ रहे हैं किस तरीके से दो पार्ट्स ऑफ द सिलेबस को रिलेट करना है. अगर आपके आंसर में ये लिखा है कि मैं एनवायरमेंटल इंपैक्ट असेसमेंट करूंगा तो ठीक है, और अगर आपके आंसर में लिखा है मैं एनवायरमेंटल इंपैक्ट असेसमेंट करके ये जानना चाहूंगा कि क्या इंपैक्ट होगा इस प्रोजेक्ट का, and this will showcase objectivity on my part, the examiner will instantly award you half a mark extra there without any doubt. मैं 100% कह देता हूं इस बात को. Why? Because you have showcased how you can relate multiple parts of the syllabus and showcase ethical justification for your actions. Secondly, what I would do, I would carry out consultations with the community. With the tribal community, with the locals there, to take their inputs on such a project. This would showcase what? Democratic decision making on my part. This would showcase what? Compassion on my part. This would showcase transparency in my behavior as a civil servant. I am someone who does not believe in my way or the highway. I believe in democratic decision making. I believe in inclusive approach. Third, in this particular situation, what I would do is that I would go ahead and also make a resettlement and rehabilitation plan. What if we carry out this project? It will impact a few people. They will be resettled. They would have to be rehabilitated. What should the various steps be taken under that particular dimension of resettlement and rehabilitation? I should also, because मेरे को ये भी बताना है, to deal with exigencies, what I will do. One of the exigencies that we may face is that there may be some environmental damage. So the plan to compensate the environmental damage caused, I would prepare this also. Now, इसमें मैं अब एथिक्स की जो बेसिक थ्योरीज हैं उनको भी यूज करूंगा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, I will say that adopting such an approach or a strategy, in my conclusion, would help in balancing what? It would help in balancing development, which would bring electricity or water to a large number of people and therefore is ethical from utilitarian perspective. This is an example of utilitarian justice. Maximum happiness to maximum people. But I would also be balancing it with the rights of the indigenous people. I would be therefore showcasing the idea of not just utilitarian justice but also duty based justice or deontological justice as well. You may not necessarily quote this, but if you can, that it showcases that I am showing respect to the rights of the individuals. Certain aspects which Kant would talk about in his idea of justice, that rights of individuals should be respected, and this is the rights based approach to justice. And I am also balancing it with the utilitarian perspective of justice. one very essential source which I recommend to students, if you have time, of course. If you are appearing in mains this year, you would not have time, but otherwise, what you can do for knowing about these basic theories of justice, basic theories of ethics, you can refer a book, Justice by Professor Michael Sandel. He is a professor at the Harvard University. If you are not someone who's very keen on reading or you don't have a lot of time, you can go through his lectures available free of cost, which he has conducted at Harvard University on YouTube as well. So if you search Justice by Michael Sandel, you will find a lecture series, very interesting set of lectures where he has talked about these various theories of justice and various theories of ethics in detail. Now, also in my answer, I would try to showcase. So अभी तक देखिए मैंने क्या किया है. मैंने स्टेप बाय स्टेप अप्रोच तो बताया, पर उसके अंदर मैंने एथिकल एस्पेक्ट्स बताए कि व्हाई दिस इज एथिकली करेक्ट फॉर मी टू डू सो. दूसरा मैंने क्या किया, आई यूज माई नॉलेज ऑफ एथिकल थियोरीज इन द आंसर एज वेल. Thirdly, what I will also do is that I would say that how such an action would balance the interests of various stakeholders. And I can possibly draw a diagram in my answer to tell who the various stakeholders are. तो मैं एक diagram अलग से बना सकता हूं where I can tell who the multiple stakeholders in that particular situation are. So one stakeholder is government, the other stakeholder is the tribal community, the wildlife is also a stakeholder, environment is a stakeholder. I can say future generations are also a stakeholder. By adopting such an approach, I would balance the interest of all these stakeholders and not only look at it from perspective of government or look at it from perspective of environment or wildlife, but I'm trying to balance this entire thing. Here you can use your knowledge of polity as well. UPSC has asked a question in polity a couple of years back. How has the environmental issues been constitutionalized in India? Constitutionalization of the environmental issues has been the biggest achievement of the Supreme Court in India's recent history. ऐसा कुछ करके उन्होंने UPSC ने क्वेश्चन पूछा था. अगर आपने वो प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन पढ़ा है तो उससे आपको ये पता चलेगा जब आप उसको प्रिपेयर करेंगे that there is something called as public trust doctrine that was laid down by the court in a very important case which is Kamalnath versus MC Mehta. In this doctrine, the court had stated that public resources such as rivers, underground water, are held by the government as trustees of the government, and it is important for the government to ensure that when they use them not for anyone's private interest but for larger public interest. They use them in a careful manner because they are not the owners of these resources belong to each one of us. The Himalayas don't belong to the government. The mountains don't belong to the government. The oceans don't belong to the government. They belong to the people of this country. The rivers of this country don't belong to the government or to any private agency. They belong to the people of this country. So if the government has been given the responsibility of managing the rivers, of managing the forests, of managing the mountains, of managing the wildlife of this country, they must do it in a manner a trustee would do so. They have been given huge responsibility and they must do it with a sense of duty, with a sense of responsibility, with a sense of ethics. That's what public trust doctrine is. So when I will be doing such an action, I can write in my conclusion, I would also be upholding the idea of public trust doctrine that was laid down by the court in Kamalnath versus MC Mehta case. If you write an answer like this, which is not only having content, ethical dimensions, you are drawing the understanding from various topics or various subjects that you have learned as a part of your preparation for the examination, there is no doubt that the examiner would not give you good marks. They will be forced to give you good marks. The cherry on the cake here would be if you can give some real life example or case study. For example, again, these real life examples or case studies will come from newspapers. See, the good part about ethics is that it is very simple and easy to prepare. And the best part is, you can read GS paper 3 for 5 years and still see the kind of marks that the candidates have got in that paper. This is not to belittle GS paper 1, 2, 3. I also teach GS paper 2 and components of GS paper 3. But you look at rank 1 this year. Her marks in GS paper 3 have not crossed even 90. But look at the kind of marks that candidates have secured in paper 4. आप बहुत सारी मेहनत करेंगे तो भी शायद 90 नहीं आए आपके GS पेपर 3 में. आप थोड़ी सी मेहनत करेंगे, एक स्ट्रक्चर्ड अप्रोच रखेंगे, GS पेपर 4 will reward you handsomely. 140, 150, 160 marks as well. 160 भी आए हुए हैं कैंडिडेट्स के. I'll show you answers. So the return on investment is significant. What I see as a problem with most of the candidates is that they think कि भाई ethics है, इसमें तो क्या है, हमें तो सब आता है. ऐसा तो कुछ है नहीं ना, इसमें कोई टेक्निकल नॉलेज तो चाहिए नहीं स्पेसिफिकली, तो लिख देंगे कुछ भी, पर मार्क्स नहीं आते. This is the mistake that I made myself in my first attempt when the pattern changed. 2013 pattern of the examination changed. I thought कि ethics में क्या है, ठीक है, थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ लेते हैं, लिखाएंगे कुछ. That year I did not get an interview call. That year I got barely 78 marks in ethics. 78. Whereas I know so many people from that year, several friends of mine, those who were able to secure 140 also. That was the difference. Otherwise, there was not much of difference. In fact, I had scored better than many of my peers in paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, essay as well. But the difference was ethics, where my score was 78 and some other candidates were securing 140. A clear gap of 62 marks. I can't cover that in optional or GS paper 1, 2, 3. क्या हो जाएगा difference? GS paper 3 के 2 के अंदर, that year I was able to secure 98 marks. It was a very tough paper that year. GS paper 2. Perhaps the lowest scores came in GS paper 2 that year. दूसरों के कितने आए? 85, 88, 90. मेरे पास कितना एडवांटेज था? 10 नंबर का. पर मेरे पास डिसएडवांटेज कितना था आप देखिए, 60 मार्क्स का डिसएडवांटेज था. There was no way that I could have covered up that 60 marks disadvantage even by securing 100 plus in GS2. नहीं हो सका उससे कुछ. So don't take ethics lightly is what I want to say here. Because a lot of candidates just think कि ये तो बहुत आसान है, इसमें तो कुछ करना नहीं है, इसलिए इग्नोर कर देते हैं, बाद में पढ़ लेंगे, एंड में देख लेंगे. ये एक ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है जो अगर आप थोड़ा रोज प्रिपेयर करते रहें, अगर आप न्यूज़पेपर से एग्जाम्पल्स इंक्लूड करते रहें, रेफरेंसेस ड्रॉ करते रहें, यू विल गेट रियली गुड मार्क्स. अब आई वॉज टॉकिंग अबाउट चेरी ऑन द केक. Cherry on the cake could be some examples from real life. You may have heard of this particular issue of RA forest, RA, the milk colony in the agricultural colony in Maharashtra, in and around Mumbai. How there was an order that was issued for cutting down the trees, more than 2,000 trees to be cut down. People went to the court. The government did not stop. They kept cutting the trees. Then intervention was made when a law student wrote the letter to the Chief Justice of India. Justice Ranjan Gogoi intervened. took the cognizance of this particular matter and instructed the government to stop immediately. बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट ऐसा ये एक इशू था एनवायरमेंटल, जहां पे पब्लिक एक्टिविज्म ने लोगों के सेंटिमेंट्स की वजह से वी वर एबल टू सेव दिस फॉरेस्ट. यहां पे एक मेट्रो का क्लीनिंग शेड बनना था बेसिकली, कि जो मेट्रो की जो भी ट्रेन्स होंगी और वो सब होगा, उनकी क्लीनिंग एंड रिपेयर मेंटेनेंस एक्सेट्रा काइंड ऑफ थिंग विल हैपन हियर, फॉर विच ह्यूज नंबर ऑफ फॉरेस्ट वुड बी कट डाउन. Biodiversity would be affected, tribal communities would be affected. This was the lifeline of the city of Mumbai. वैसे तो कंक्रीट का जंगल है, उस कंक्रीट के जंगल के पास में अगर कोई एक बायोडाइवर्सिटी और एक कोई लाइफलाइन थी ट्रूली नेचुरल, दैट वाज दिस फॉरेस्ट, और आप उसको भी काट रहे हैं. प्रोटेस्ट टुक प्लेस, सेवरल पीपल वर अरेस्टेड. I will use this as an example कि अगर मैं ऐसा नहीं करूंगा, if I do not show empathy towards people, if I don't hold public consultations, क्या होगा? ऐसी situation होगी. People will take to the streets, people will protest, there may be violence also, things may flare up, it may disturb public order, it will send a very bad image of the government and of the civil services as well. So you use this example as a case study in your answer, just in short, and you showcase to the examiner. Important thing is कि ये सारी जो चीजें हैं हमें ethics में जो लिखनी है, you have to remember that time management is a big challenge. So you can't be writing long drawn sentences. Points में ही लिखना पड़ेगा. Would conduct EIA, showcase objectivity. Would conduct consultations with community, would showcase democratic decision making, would prepare a rehabilitation and resettlement plan, would showcase compassion. That's how you have to write. लंबा चौड़ा नहीं लिख सकते. I will go and prepare an EIA report and assess what will be the damages that will be caused by this particular project and see whether that is going to make sense to then go ahead with the project or not. ये आपने जो है अपने पूरा समय और जो स्पेस था बर्बाद कर दिया ये सब लिखने में. एथिक्स में पॉसिबिलिटी ही नहीं है, क्योंकि 150 नंबर के अंदर 200 नंबर 150 वर्ड्स में 200 वर्ड्स के अंदर आंसर लिखना है. वी डोंट हैव पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ राइटिंग लॉन्ग ड्रॉन आंसर्स. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस नाउ? ठीक है. नाउ एनीवे, लेट्स कम बैक क्विकली टू दिस. सो वी हैव डिस्कस्ड द एथिकल डिलेमास इन पब्लिक सर्विस एज अ टॉपिक, है ना. अब देखिए फ्यूचर में क्या क्वेश्चन आ सकते हैं, ये भी सोचना बहुत जरूरी है. If you read newspapers regularly, then you will come across future themes as well. Future question could be, UPSC has still not asked a question on ethics in artificial intelligence. Application of artificial intelligence as a dependable source of input for administrative decision making is debatable. Critically examine this from an ethical point of view. Artificial intelligence can help us in improving service delivery. Artificial intelligence can help us in speeding up the government processes. Artificial intelligence can make the decision making within the government highly objective in nature. Artificial intelligence can reduce the requirement of resources within the government and the training to be provided for the civil servant. So it is great from that perspective, but it has its own challenges. Artificial intelligence can be biased. Artificial intelligence lacks compassion. There is no consciousness of artificial intelligence. उसको सही और गलत की पहचान थोड़ी ना है. उसको जो बताया गया सही और गलत वो उसके लिए सही गलत है. बट ह्यूमन पर्सपेक्टिव से, वैल्यू पर्सपेक्टिव से मॉरल जजमेंट तो नहीं कर सकता आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस. आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस तो ये नहीं बता सकता कि अगर 2 लोग आए हैं लाइन में लग के जिनको राशन कार्ड देना है, एक 80 साल की बुढ़ी औरत है और एक 70 साल का आदमी है जो कि चल नहीं सकता है. आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस को अगर आपने ट्रेन किया उस पर्सपेक्टिव से तो वो फिर भी उन पे सेग्रीगेट कर देगा, अदरवाइज नहीं कर पाएगा. इट लैक्स कंपैशन, इट लैक्स मॉरल जजमेंट. So it's important to prepare possible themes for future as well is what you need to keep in mind. Anyway, now let's move on to the other topics. The next topic is laws, rules, regulations, conscience as source of ethics. अब इसके अंदर क्या क्या प्रिपेयर करना है? Let's quickly discuss this. We don't have a lot of time left, so let's go ahead quickly with this. In this particular topic, we need to prepare meaning and scope of law, of rules, of consciousness. Laws, rules bole to conduct rules, etc., code of conduct, and conscience. Secondly, what are the examples of situations in which a decision is legally right but ethically wrong? एक तो ये examples of situations in which a decision is legally wrong but ethically right. Do you understand this? There are certain decisions which are legally right but ethically wrong. There are certain decisions which are legally wrong but ethically right. Can you think of certain examples of certain situations or decisions in which you are legally wrong but you are ethically right? बताइए, आप लीगली तो गलत हैं बट एथिकली राइट हैं. Distribution of food grains to an old lady who does not have proper documentation, who has lost it in floods. It is legally wrong but ethically right. I can give real life example as well. We all know about the story of Satyendra Dubey, an engineer with the National Highway Association, National Highway Authority of India, who was killed by the mafia. He had the courage to write the letter to the Prime Minister of the country to expose corruption in the quadrilateral project. What he did was legally wrong. Why? Because he possibly violated the principle of secrecy. So maybe the conduct rules did not allow him to do so, but he was ethically right because he did it due to public interest. A doctor agrees to treat a patient without going through legal formalities. Legally wrong, but ethically right. So many examples. Feeding food to homeless people in front of your house during COVID-19 lockdown. You're not supposed to step out of your house, but you have compassion. Ethically right, but legally wrong. You're breaking the law, but you're doing it to save someone's life. Right? Breaking a traffic signal, an ambulance breaks a traffic signal to rush a person who is in need of urgent care at the hospital. Legally wrong, ethically right. Understood to everyone? समझ पा रहे हैं examples मतलब? Examples of legally right but ethically wrong. I got an order as a civil servant to evict poor slum dwellers. It is legally right but ethically wrong if I am not giving enough consideration to what would happen to those slum dwellers if there is no rehabilitation plan in place. So, legally right, ethically wrong example will be eviction of poor slum dwellers, let's say during rains or during monsoons. इतना ही एग्जाम्पल बस आपके पास लिखे होने चाहिए, है ना? हर चीज के लिए दो दो तीन तीन एग्जाम्पल. लीगली राइट, एथिकली रॉन्ग, 3 एग्जाम्पल्स. लीगली रॉन्ग, एथिकली राइट, 3 एग्जाम्पल्स. Awarding project to the lowest bidder in a government auction, even though you know that the quality of the execution of work by that individual is extremely poor. Legally तो right है but ethically गलत है. Why? Public interest is getting compromised. Legally तो आपने सब कुछ सही किया. आप बोलेंगे मैं क्या करूं, मेरे पास तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट आया था, मेरे को अवॉर्ड करना था, लोएस्ट बिडर को कर दिया. नहीं, यू हैव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी एज अ सिविल सर्वेंट दैट यू प्रिवेंट सच थिंग फ्रॉम हैपनिंग. तो आपकी क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बनती है? आप अपने सुपीरियर को लिखें, आप उनको इंफॉर्म करें कि सर हम ये ऐसा करने जा रहे हैं, लोएस्ट बिड इसकी है, लीगली तो ये ठीक होगा, बट आई नो ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड ऑफ दिस पर्सन इज वेरी पुअर. ऑब्जेक्टिविटी भी तो दिखानी है. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस? सो think about certain examples of legally right, ethically wrong, ethically right, legally wrong, etc., and all of those things. And in this topic also you need to prepare essentially why it is important for a person or a civil servant to look beyond laws for ethical decisions. Looking beyond laws for ethical decisions. एक सिंपल सा एग्जाम्पल है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी का, दैट वी स्टडी इन अवर पॉलिटी. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी का एक मतलब यह है दैट यू शुड नॉट गो बाय द लिटरल टेक्स्ट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. इंटरप्रिटेशन शुड बी डन of the constitutional values and the principles in light of constitutional morals and values. So, the point being, if constitution literally says something, that should not be the only interpretation. Rather, go beyond the literal interpretation of the constitution to derive the true meaning of the provision of the constitution, on the basis of the philosophy, on the basis of the values, the principles that guided the members of the Constituent Assembly in drafting the Constitution. Is that clear to everyone? Now, let's move further. The next topic is accountability and governance. Accountability and governance. Accountability and ethical governance actually. In this, you need to prepare firstly definitions of each of the terms, including accountability, governance, good governance, and ethical governance. Good governance is that I have deployed the Aadhaar system in order to efficiently distribute the benefits of a particular government scheme. Efficiency aa gayi. But ethical governance is, while implementing this Aadhaar system, I also consulted the local community how the scheme should be designed, how it should be implemented. Ethical governance, participative decision making, consensus based decision making. So it becomes ethical governance. That's what we need to keep in mind. So anyway, definitions of accountability, governance, good governance, ethical governance, definition of the term transparency, ये prepare करना जरूरी है. Then we need to prepare the various mechanisms to ensure governance, good governance, ethical governance, etc. So you can essentially talk about mechanisms. For example, what are the mechanisms in the government to ensure transparency? What are the mechanisms in government to ensure accountability? How have we taken measures to ensure good governance? How have we taken measures to ensure ethical governance? So what are the mechanisms? What are the measures that have been taken? Then some of the important points with respect to significance of each of these. What is the significance of accountability, significance of good governance, significance of ethical governance, etc. What are some of the challenges? Civil servants often don't want to behave in a transparent manner because they fear that their failure will be scrutinized. Because they don't want to get the responsibility of any kind of wrongdoing that happens as a result of the decisions that they have taken. And then lastly, what measures can be taken in order to improve the above. बात समझ में आई? These are the various dimensions that we need to prepare as far as accountability and ethical governance is concerned. Then another topic is strengthening moral values in governance. Strengthening moral values in governance. In this, we need to know what institutional measures the government has already taken in order to strengthen moral values in governance. Mission Karma Yogi, Code of Ethics, training modules, etc. What individual measures have been taken or can be taken. दोनों ही चीजें प्रिपेयर करनी है. Individual measures already taken and that can be taken. Civil servants need to lead by example. They need to be role models, etc. and all of those things. Mentor-mentee kind of a relationship. Then, what are the challenges that are faced in strengthening moral values in governance? क्या challenges face होते हैं? There is resistance from bureaucracy. There is excessive corruption in the society. The legal mechanisms are very weak to ensure accountability, to check corruption within the government, etc. and all of those things. And then possibly a list of some successful examples of how we have incorporated morals in governance in India. Now, the next topic, ethics in international relations. Ethics in IR. इसमें सबसे पहले what are the various theories of ethics in IR? Secondly, what are the examples of conflicts, tensions with respect to international relations? Thirdly, a list of specific issues has to be prepared from the perspective of ethics in IR. For example, you need to prepare the topic of war and peace ethics. Do we need war or do we need peace? Whether humanitarian intervention should be carried out by the nations when there is violation of the human rights that is being done by the state of its own citizens. The ethics of whether refugees should be turned down or whether you should take them in to your country, those who are escaping some kind of persecution, etc. Ethics related to global inequality that exists. Ethics of humanitarian aid, international aid that is provided by various nations. Is that actually done due to ethical reasons or there are ulterior motives associated with it? Ethics of climate change or climate justice. These are some of the themes that we need to prepare as a part of ethics in international relations. Basic theories पता होनी चाहिए, कुछ examples conflicts के पता होने चाहिए, and ये इन सब चीजों के ethical perspectives पता होने चाहिए. Then next topic, I'll come to this ethics in IR and we'll see one question related to it. Now the next one is corporate governance. In this topic, we need to know the definition of corporate governance, importance of corporate governance in India. Why do we need corporate governance norms to be followed in India? Third, what are some of the challenges that we face in India in ensuring ethical corporate governance? What are some of the examples of failures of corporate governance? Satyam scam, ILNFS scandal, ICICI scandal, right? So failures of corporate governance in India is also something that we need to prepare. Then some examples of ethical corporate governance shown by the corporate entities in India. You need to specifically prepare the aspects of corporate social responsibility as well. What is CSR? Why is CSR important? What are the provisions in law related to CSR in India? What is the impact of CSR? Positives, negatives. All of these things have to be prepared in corporate governance. And then lastly, recommendations of important committees related to corporate governance. Kotak Committee, Kumar Mangalam Committee, Damodaran Committee. Some important recommendations we need to be aware of. Not all, but some. Enough. Next, probity in governance. This is what number? 8. Firstly, meaning of the term probity in governance. What is the definition of probity in governance? Difference between probity and integrity. Often something that is found very confusing by the students. Integrity is in personal context. Probity is in terms of processes, systems, institutions. Importance of probity in governance in public service delivery. Importance in public service delivery. What are the institutional safeguards that are there to ensure probity in governance? We have Lokpal, we have CAG, we have the Whistleblower Act, CVC, etc. What are some of the challenges that we face in ensuring probity in governance? क्या challenges, क्या difficulties face की जाती हैं in ensuring probity in governance? Some examples of institutions showcasing probity in governance, success, and some example of failure of probity in governance. CBI is an example of failure of probity in governance. Election Commission of India is an example of success as far as probity in governance is concerned. Now, in this, further, another very important topic is Code of Ethics and Code of Conduct. Again, definition of the term code of ethics and code of conduct, difference between the two, examples of certain conduct rules, all India Civil Services conduct rules, etc. Some proposal made in form of public service code of second ARC as far as code of ethics is concerned, importance of code of ethics and code of conduct in public life. What are some of the limitations of code of conduct and code of ethics? Why they cannot by themselves completely achieve ethical governance? What are some of the recommendations that have been provided by second ARC on implementing code of ethics and code of governance in India? Another important topic is citizen charter. What is it? Importance, components, experience in India, success, failure, Sevottam model, challenges in ensuring success of citizen charter, way forward or recommendations to improve its implementation, including recommendations by second ARC. Next, corruption. In this, we need to prepare definition, status in India, some reports, statistics, etc. Say, for example, India's ranking on Corruption Perception Index of Transparency International. Legal provisions related to corruption, very broad understanding, especially under Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988. Causes of corruption in India, effects of corruption on economy, on society, on politics, on administration. What are the ways to tackle corruption? In ways to tackle, again, break it down into institutional measures, legal measures, administrative measures. Possibly you can look at some examples from Kautilya's Arthashastra or examples from Mahabharata, right? So things like that. Ways to tackle corruption, how do we tackle corruption going ahead in future? That's also something which you need to prepare. इसमें भी बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीजें पूछता है यूपीएससी. यूपीएससी आस्क्स दैट is non-performance of duty by a public servant also corruption? Yes, it is. Because when you are not doing your duty, you are doing dereliction of duty, it is causing public harm. It is not leading to serving public interest. You are taking salary, you are leading to loss of public resources. Corruption. You are misusing the government office. You are not delivering the goods as a part of the government office or government position. Anyway, now, what else? Utilization of public funds. what are some of the challenges with respect to utilization of public funds in India? Specific challenges include misutilization, पैसा जो था उसको कहीं और यूज कर लिया, और अंडर यूटिलाइजेशन, you did not use the money only, or misappropriation, you ended up siphoning the funds that were supposed to be utilized for government, for the citizens' benefit. So misutilization, you ended up spending money on what was not the priority. Misappropriation, you siphoned money. Or underutilization, you did not spend the money only in that particular period of time in which it was supposed to be. What are the mechanisms to ensure effective utilization of funds? To ensure effective, efficient utilization of funds. What is the, so in mechanisms may specifically prepare, for example, social audit, planning, that too use of technology. Then the next topic is quality of service delivery. ये कौन सा 13th? Quality of service delivery. What are the parameters to judge quality of service delivery within the government? Equity, timeliness, efficiency. ना तो ये सारे different principles of quality of service delivery, on the basis of which quality of service delivery should be judged. Secondly, what are the challenges that we face in ensuring quality service delivery in India? Third, what are the steps that have been taken in order to improve the quality of service delivery, and what measures need to be taken to improve quality of service delivery? अब जैसे हम प्रोबिटी इन गवर्नेंस की बात कर रहे थे, टू एंश्योर प्रोबिटी इन गवर्नेंस, whistleblower protection act is very important. So you need to then know what is whistleblower protection act, important provisions of whistleblower protection act of 2014, some of the limitations of whistleblower protection act of 2014, how the whistleblower protection act of 2014 has been successful in ensuring ethical governance. So prepare those particular aspects as well. Then one very important aspect which often is missed is philosophical basis of governance. So in this, prepare various theories of ethics and look at it from governance perspective, utilitarianism, deontological, virtue ethics. Look at, so इसमें utilitarianism, deontological, virtue based ethics. Look at the Indian school or the Indian theories as well on philosophical basis of governance. The concept of dharma, the concept of nyaya, Buddhist perspective on ethics in governance, Buddhist perspective on ethical aspects of governance, Gandhian principles or Gandhian ethics related to governance, ethical aspects of governance. Some of the examples of these philosophies or these particular principles coming into effect in governance. So this is how the preparation of this entire syllabus has to be done as far as ethics in governance or ethics in administration is concerned. Now, let me quickly talk about a couple of other things as well, and then we talk about aspects related to answer writing, etc. There was a lot that I wanted to discuss, but again, see, time is very less, so it was not possible to discuss everything, but let's see this now. At international level, bilateral relationship between most nations are governed by policy of promoting one's own national interest with little regard for others. This leads to conflicts. So often countries promote national interest as their priority and not necessarily have any regard for the interest of the other countries. How can ethical consideration help in resolving such tensions that emerge because of your national interest versus the interest of the global community or interest of others? Humanitarian benefits versus national interest. Discuss with examples. This was a question that was asked by UPSC. Now, let's try to understand what should be our approach to such a question. ऐसे question के अंदर हमें क्या करना होगा? See, firstly, in such a question, UPSC expects you to talk about that why national, so importance of national interest, why every country gives priority to national interest, because ultimately it's important for any state to protect its own citizens first. It's important to ensure the sovereignty of any nation. It is important to maintain the idea of rule of law. It is to meet the expectations of the people of that particular nation or that particular country. So that's why national interest is important. But then you will say that often this national interest comes at crossroads with the ethical concerns or ethical issues. Ideally, any particular nation should not only give importance to national interest but several ethical values as well in IR. What are those ethical values? You will mention some of them. For example, any nation should look at promoting cooperation. You can give the justification on the basis of Article 51 of Indian Constitution, Directive Principle of State Policy. That also gives the responsibility on the Indian state to promote international peace and cooperation. Any nation should try to promote the idea of global justice, highlighted in the UN Charter. UN Charter को ढंग से पढ़िएगा, DPSPs पढ़िए ढंग से, फंडामेंटल राइट्स पढ़िए, उन सब चीजों को यूज कीजिएगा अपने आंसर्स के अंदर एथिक्स में. Then any country should always promote respect for human rights. Why? On what basis can you justify that? UN Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. Any country should promote respect for sovereignty of others. Can you give me an example here that you can use? Panchsheel principles of India's foreign policy. An example of how ethical values should drive the behavior of any country in international relations. Then you will say, अब इसमें आपको examples देने होंगे. How these ethical values can help in resolution of various issues. तो कैसे इन एथिकल वैल्यूज के बेसिस पे आप कुछ इश्यूज का रेजोल्यूशन ढूंढ सकते हैं. यू विल फॉर एग्जांपल आप हिस्टोरिकली बहुत सारी चीजों के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं. यू मे हैव रेड अबाउट द क्यूबन मिसाइल क्राइसिस इन योर वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री, सो यू कैन टॉक अबाउट दैट, राइट. द वर्ल्ड वॉज एट द वर्ज ऑफ कंप्लीट डिस्ट्रक्शन, बट इट वॉज द ह्यूमैनिटेरियन कॉज, इट वॉज द humanitarian reasons that led the countries to avert this particular crisis. Climate change. If the developed countries of the world are ready to accept their responsibility for the historic emissions that they have caused, it can help in building trust between them and the developing countries and help in resolving the issue of climate change today. Common but differentiated responsibility principle. Nelson Mandela's act of forgiveness, another example of how ethics in international relations can help in resolving various conflicts and issues. India went on to accept the ruling of ICJ in a dispute with Bangladesh and did not challenge it. An example of how resolution of issues can be done in an ethical manner. India's Gujarat Doctrine, where we will be magnanimous towards our smaller neighbors in South Asia, an example of ethical resolution of international conflicts. इसमें आप sources के बारे में बात कीजिएगा, you can refer Sustainable Development Goals, UN Charter, etc. and so many other things. This is what UPSC is basically expecting in your answer. है ना, कुछ examples, certain ethical values that should be showcased, and how often national interest and ethical values come at conflict with each other. That's what UPSC is expecting from you in this particular question. Anyway, so we have done the coverage of the syllabus now. Let me quickly come to what are some of the aspects that you need to keep in mind as far as answer writing strategies are concerned. Any general answer in ethics in administration or section A should of course include these following things. There should be an introduction where you should either define the issue that is there, define the key terms concept, or interpret if there is a quote that has been given, quote based question agar ho to. Or start with a real life example or a statistic, or start with a quotation in your introduction. Body, the expectation of the examiner is that structure would be very clear. You will address each part of the question appropriately. You would give at least one example to justify your stand, and lastly, in conclusion, you would use ethical arguments to round off your answer. These are the expectations that the examiner has. Then let's move further. तो ये चीजें ध्यान रखनी है हमेशा, ये होनी ही चाहिए, है ना. Then अगर concept based question है, in that kind of a question, say for example, उसने पूछा कि okay, importance of impartiality in civil services. So the general structure that you can follow is give the definition, talk about the importance of that particular value, give some examples, and a brief conclusion in an ethical manner or from a futuristic perspective. If it is a discuss or an analyze question, we all know that we have to discuss the merits, demerits, and different perspectives. If it is a quote based question, first explain the meaning of the quote, its significance in present day life, and some examples to relate it to the present day. If it is a critically examine or critically analyze question, then in that particular question you have to first start with the positives in favor of that particular statement, and then negatives, and then a balanced evaluation, and finally move towards a conclusion on that particular topic. Now look at this. Another important thing is use examples as much as possible in your answers. If there are no examples, you will not get marks in ethics, or for that matter in any of the GS papers. You simply write that it will reduce poverty, but if you write that it will reduce poverty as has been stated in this particular report, it will give you more marks. So keep that also in mind. Then, so always illustrate theoretical points with examples. Examples ideally should be from recent current events as much as possible to ensure effective credibility of your answer. Keep a ready reference of examples by every theme. We have already discussed about that. Now, जैसे कि अगर आप प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं सिविल सर्विसेज वैल्यू, नोटेबल IAS ऑफिसर्स इनिशिएटिव्स, कॉर्पोरेट एथिक्स, सर्टेन CSR प्रोजेक्ट्स, लिस्ट ऑफ some scams, scandals that have happened, international ethics, some examples of countries not taking in refugees, examples of countries showcasing humanitarian angle, India's vaccine मैत्री for example है ना, तो एक list of examples has to be prepared for each of the topics. Another thing, Try to incorporate thinkers as much as possible in your answers, in introduction, conclusion, in order to justify your arguments as well. We will have a look at that very shortly. Another important thing, while you are writing the answers in the question, exam taking strategy, it's important that you prioritize the questions and first answer those questions which you can answer confidently, and then move towards the ones which you are not very confident of. Always helps in building a momentum in the examination. You have to be strict with your time management in ethics paper. If you don't do that, you will mess up the entire paper. We see that year after year with many candidates, and the only way that you can be very good in ethics paper is you have to write, in my opinion, at least 2 full-length ethics paper before you go into the mains examination hall. उसके बिना लिखे ethics का पेपर मत लिखिएगा. कम से कम 2 पेपर ethics के full length लिखिए. चाहे थोड़ा टाइम ज्यादा लग जाए, पहले पेपर में 3 घंटे की जगह 3.5 लग जाए, पर दूसरा पेपर कम से कम 3 घंटे में लिखिएगा, सो दैट यू नो कि किस स्पीड पे लिखना है मुझे, किस स्पीड पे आई हैव टू रिस्पॉन्ड. बिकॉज एथिक्स में सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज यही है, पेपर फिनिश नहीं होता है मैक्सिमम कैंडिडेट्स का. देन मेंटेन कंसाइज एंड क्लियर राइटिंग, अवॉइड जार्गन, अवॉइड टेक्निकल लैंग्वेज. बहुत सिंपल लैंग्वेज में लिखना है, मैंने आपको ऑलरेडी एग्जांपल दे दिया है. एंड अंडरलाइन की टर्म्स, कॉन्सेप्ट्स, एग्जांपल्स सो एज टू गिव विजिबिलिटी टू द एग्जामिनर. फ्यू मिस्टेक्स टू अवॉइड which are common mistakes. Candidates answer everything but not the question that has been asked. Overly general or vague responses without giving ample examples to substantiate your arguments. Neglecting conclusion, उसमें कुछ भी लिख देना, ये भी बहुत बार हम देखते हैं. Don't do that. And lastly, imbalance between theory and practical examples. बहुत सारी theory लिख दी, बहुत सारे aspects लिख दिए, but practical examples are missing, you will not get marks. In your ethics answers, it's very important that your tone is very positive, optimistic. करप्शन के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं तो ऐसे मत बात कीजिए कि मतलब आपको कोई उम्मीद ही नहीं है कि करप्शन कभी खत्म नहीं हो सकती है ना. सो बी पॉजिटिव, बी ऑप्टिमिस्टिक इन योर टोन. ऑलवेज यूज ethical arguments to justify your answers. Always show empathy, compassion, public spiritedness, environmental friendliness. ये सब चीजों को सबसे ऊपर रखिएगा, है ना. Always, always. And also see that your answers come from perspective of a future civil servant. उस तरीके से सोच के लिखिएगा. Not someone who's a student, but a future civil servant. Ideally, try and write answers on a daily basis. If you are giving mains for next year, at least 1 to 2 answers on a daily basis, and then eventually moving on to full length tests. Try to begin with your peer evaluation initially. You can look at previous year topper copies, write the answers to the questions that they have written, and compare your answers to their answers. And lastly, learn from topper answer copies. That brings me to the point of what we learn from topper answer copies. Aditya Srivastav, rank 1, 2023 CSE, got 143 marks in ethics. Look at all the elements that I just talked about are present in his answer. Question was, for effective corporate governance to take place in coming years, why is it important to integrate the ESG metrics in multi-stakeholder approach? Which is ESG is environmental, social and governance matrix. What benefits can be accrued by such integration? सबसे पहले क्या किया? Explain corporate ethics are governed by values of 3 P's, people, planet, profitability. एक diagram बना दिया. At the intersection of this lies corporate ethics. What is the need for ESG metrics? Clear heading, then explained the various aspects. Then all this calls for multi-stakeholder approach. Each part of the question has been answered in a separate manner. Underlining has been done properly. Enough number of examples have been given. Tata Mansi proposal to improve IMR and MMR. Examples: Kanpur tanneries, chromium pollution in Ganga led to exploitation of environment. Very simple, short language has been written. ज़्यादा explanation में नहीं गए हैं. Don't do that in ethics. One more example. Vishakha Yadav, AIR 6 2019. She got the highest marks in ethics till date, 162. 162 और 140 में भी 20 नंबर का फर्क होता है, 20 मार्क्स टॉप, मतलब आप, अरे 22 नंबर मेरे भाई, 140 160 बोल रहा हूं मैं, मेरे को भी मैथमेटिक्स आती है, थैंक यू, ठीक है. सो नाउ व्हाट इज द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन एथिक्स एंड लॉ, एक्सप्लेन विद एग्जांपल्स. व्हाट वाज डन, फर्स्टली डिफाइन व्हाट इज लॉ, डिफाइन व्हाट इज एथिक्स, डेफिनेशन दिया, देन drew an diagram to explain the relationship between laws guide our ethical conduct guides our conscience, and then conscience guides laws and laws guides ethical conduct, and it's a loop. Then explain relationship between them. Ethical compass is major source of regulation of the law. Example दिया इनकम टैक्स एक्ट का, लॉ एक्ट एज एक्सटर्नल चेक एक्सेट्रा, एग्जाम्पल दिया ट्रैफिक रूल्स फॉर्मुलेशन का. इट पुट्स कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल एंड मॉरल ऑब्लिगेशन ऑन लॉ मेकर्स टू फॉर्मुलेट लॉज रिस्पॉन्सिबली एंड मॉरली, एग्जाम्पल दिया अगेन. एंडिंग कैसे दी, लॉ इज नॉट नीडेड इफ पीपल आर अबाइडिंग. इन द एंड वी कैन कोट एरिस्टोटल, लॉ इज नॉट नीडेड इफ पीपल आर अबाइडिंग. एन एग्जाम्पल ऑफ यूजिंग कोट फ्रॉम अ मॉरल थिंकर और अ फिलोसोफर टू कंक्लूड योर आंसर. Medha Anand, one of our students, she was there with us last year in the mains advanced batch. AIR 13, secured 140 marks in ethics. Exceptionally clear answers. Question is, an ethical work culture not only drives positive organizational outcomes but also helps employees thrive. Importance of ethical work culture बताना है. उससे दो चीजें होती हैं, it helps achieve positive organizational outcomes and employee also thrive. पहले क्या किया, वर्क कल्चर डिफाइन किया. एथिकल वर्क कल्चर लीड्स टू पॉजिटिव ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल आउटकम्स एंड एम्प्लॉइज बेटरमेंट. पॉइंट्स रिटन, numerous examples have been also given. For example, it leads to compassionate capitalism. Tata Trust paid salaries of deceased employees and also funded their kids' education. ये स्पेसिफिक एग्जाम्पल मैंने कोट किया था मेंस एडवांस बैच की क्लास में, जहां पे मैंने बताया था that this is an example of a foundational value of the Tata group of companies. है ना? So virtue ethics will enhance as employees won't see themselves commit corrupt practices. Basic फंडा क्या किया है, various aspects of ethics have been taken and जितना हो सके आंसर को जेनेरिक नहीं लिखा है, एथिकल पर्सपेक्टिव से लिखा है. वर्चू एथिक्स के पर्सपेक्टिव से लिखा, कंपैशन एंड कैपिटलिज्म, इंक्लूसिव वर्क एनवायरनमेंट प्रमोट होगा इससे, इट वुड लीड टू बैलेंस्ड एडवर्सिटी क्वेश्चन. फॉर एग्जांपल, बोथ एम्प्लॉय एंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इजीली ट्रेड डाउनफॉल्स इन बिजनेस साइकिल, जब भी बिजनेस नीचे जाएगा, एंड ऑल ऑफ दोस काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. फ्यू अदर थिंग्स. इंट्रोडक्शंस. There are different ways of writing introduction. Definition based introduction. You can write introduction on the basis of some current affairs events that you may have read in the newspaper. Question tha AI and how AI can pose challenges around transparency, job security, etc. The launch of ChatGPT by OpenAI has accelerated the AI transformation of organizations across the globe. The third way is interpretation based. Discuss how emotional intelligence can influence ethical decision making and allocation of scarce public resources. Importance of emotional intelligence to allocate these limited resources of the government in public service delivery. Emotional intelligence is the ability to make the emotions work for us instead of against us. It has 4 components and so on and so forth. Definition based, again provided of emotional intelligence. Then another important thing, importance of referring to ethical thinkers. This is something that you will see in almost all the high scorers in the examination. Falsehood takes place of truth if it results in unblemished common good. Information is the currency of democracy. Thomas Jefferson. The statement of Kofi Annan aptly sums up Mahapanishad message of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, also theme of G20 India. And then very important thing, use diagrams in your answers. Diagrams, not just to make diagram for the sake, but something that will help you in simplifying a concept which you have written. Right? So here They have explained how citizen charter can lead to greater public trust, it can lead to better service delivery, and it therefore increase tax collection. Income tax department के context में citizen charter की importance explain करती, right? Impartiality और compassion होगा तो उसको एक diagram से explain कर दिया. Simple diagrams also work. Traditional top-down ways of ensuring accountability. Parliamentary Standing Committee, CAG, Lokpal, Lokayukta, etc. ऐसे कर दिया. So different ways of doing that as well is what you need to keep in mind. Diagrams in order to secure more marks. Use knowledge from other subjects. Article 26 of the Constitution has been quoted of right to freedom, to religion. In words of Martin Luther King Jr., intelligence plus character should be the true goal of education. But sorry state of education due to cheating is testament of failure of social values and democratic system. Again, something that we have learned from society, something that we have learned from while reading governance, while reading various aspects of world history, when we are reading about someone like Martin Luther King. Now, last few things that I wanted to say. Key takeaways that you must understand from the topper copies. First and foremost, as you would have seen, conceptual understanding of each and every topic and its subtopic is very crucial. Secondly, it's important that your answers should be well structured. You should answer each part of the question. It should be deliberately shown to the examiner that you have answered each part of the question with proper underlining. And third, if you have timely practice that is done of this entire thing along with examples, along with quotations, it will definitely result in a high score in ethics paper. Second, and a very important thing, ethics answer should reflect your knowledge, examples, information, current affairs, things that you can quote from other aspects, but also your character as well. The examiner is checking and judging your character also as an individual. So it's very important that your answers are grounded, they are humble, they maintain a formal tone, yet they are very optimistic in nature and they are morally upright as well. And last and most important thing, you have to continuously improve. And that can only happen when you write more answers, when you write more tests, you take more feedback, and then you compare your answers to the answers written by the toppers, and then learn from their topper copies, sit with topper copies every day, one topper copy a day, and try to see how they are writing the answers. Pick up some of the high scorers from the previous years. You will learn a lot. I must admit, I learn a lot when I read the topper copies of our students. बहुत बार उससे पढ़ के हमें समझ में आता है कि और किस तरीके से हमें improve करना चाहिए अपना teaching methodology, so that our students in future can do better. Maybe student copies would not teach me a lot when it comes to constitution and polity. The reason for that is because I practice that subject every day. There are numerous sources that I have referred, and it's very difficult for the students to be able to compare to those standards. But ethics is a subject where anyone can become a master. Anyone. There is no specific book that is available to necessarily become good at ethics. It's about practice, it's about application, it's about your character, it's about your moral judgment. And that's why that's one subject where I learn the most from my students, from their answer copies. I usually don't necessarily look into the topper copies of previous years for constitution, polity, governance, internal security, because मुझे पता है कि उसमें कितना ही अच्छा आंसर हो जाएगा. Knowledge ही तो है largely. Knowledge में तो आप टीचर को नहीं बीट कर सकते, especially a person like me who's practicing that subject every day. But ethics में आप जरूर बीट कर सकते हैं. And that's why there is so much to learn for us as well. तो आपके लिए भी बहुत कुछ सीखने को है. If you look at the previous year topper copies and if you go through the analysis thoroughly. Right? Anyway, so that's pretty much from my end as far as this session is concerned. This is my email ID. If you have any queries or any difficulties, you can always write a mail to me here. Please be objective in your mail. Please don't write broad mails. Otherwise, it's very difficult to address the issues. We have 3-4 minutes before we call off the session. If any one of you has any questions, you may ask right now and we can call it off. किसी को कोई question, किसी को कोई problem, doubt with respect to what we need to do? Okay. Thank you so much for attending the session so patiently, and for all of you, those who are writing the mains examination this year, wishing you all the very best. If you have any issues, doubts, please reach out to me. I have a class right now at 5 o'clock, so I'll be pushing, but आप मेरे को mail लिख दीजिएगा. If you want to meet me as well, you can come and meet me. For those who are writing the examination next year, please पहले मेहनत कीजिए, बेसिक एफर्ट कीजिए, उसके बाद आइए. कई बार क्या होता है, मैं ये भी देखता हूँ, स्टूडेंट्स कम कि सर स्ट्रेटजी बता दीजिए. मैं क्या स्ट्रेटजी बताऊं? इतनी सारी स्ट्रेटजी सेशंस आपके लिए हम करते हैं, टॉपर्स के साथ करते हैं, आप उसके बाद भी स्ट्रेटजी पूछना चाहते हैं. मैं बार बार ये बोलता हूं कि अगर आप इस बार दे रहे हैं एग्जाम तो अलग बात है ना. अब तो स्ट्रेटजी की बात नहीं है, अभी तो कुछ बेसिक कुछ डाउट्स होते हैं कॉन्फिडेंस को लेके, अप्रोच को लेके, वो सब चीजें अलग है. दो स्टूडेंट्स आई एम विलिंग टू मीट राइट नाउ. बट अगर आप स्ट्रेटजी पूछने आ रहे हैं तो पहले आप कुछ करके आइएगा, कुछ आंसर लिख के लाइए, कुछ एफर्ट कीजिए, नोट्स बनाइए, कुछ मेहनत कीजिए, तब आप मेरे पास आए या किसी भी टीचर के पास जाएं तो दे विल बी एबल टू हेल्प यू बेटर. राइट? सो थैंक यू सो मच एंड विशिंग ऑल ऑफ यू ऑल द वेरी बेस्ट. थैंक यू.
The UPSC exam doesn't defeat you with difficulty. It defeats you with confusion, lack of clarity, lack of direction, and preparation that feels scattered. At Vision IAS Delhi, we rebuild your UPSC journey with structure, strategy, and support that doesn't waver. Get complete coverage of GSC, SAT, and essays step by step. PT 365 and Mains 365, so current affairs stop feeling like chaos. Personal mentorship, not just advice, but actual strategy guidance. Test feedback loops, because growth begins where guesswork ends. Toppers didn't just prepare, they built the right foundation. Now it's your turn. This isn't just a course, it's where clarity, consistency, and confidence begin. The UPSC exam doesn't defeat you with difficulty. It defeats you with confusion, lack of clarity, lack of direction, and preparation that feels scattered. At Vision IAS Delhi, we rebuild your UPSC journey with structure, strategy, and support that doesn't waver. Get complete coverage of GSC, SAT, and essays step by step. PT 365 and Mains 365, so current affairs stop feeling like chaos. Personal mentorship, not just advice, but actual strategy guidance. Test feedback loops, because growth begins where guesswork ends. Toppers didn't just prepare, they built the right foundation. Now it's your turn. This isn't just a course, it's where clarity, consistency, and confidence begin.